prompt engineering was one of the most important AI skills in 2023. But we're in 2026 now, and prompt engineering is just table stakes. It's the bare minimum. If you're still optimizing your prompts instead of building an architecture, you're polishing the wrong thing. Let me talk to you about what it's going to take for you to replace it. Now, let me be clear up front. I'm not saying prompting doesn't matter, okay? It does. But if you can't frame a clear question for AI, nothing else I'm about to say is going to help you. Just plain and simple. But here's the thing, prompting now is a commodity skill. In 2023, knowing how to write a good prompt made you light years ahead of everybody else. But in 2026, it's like knowing how to Google something. It's necessary, but it's the baseline. And it's not sufficient for if you want to take things to the next level. It's not the thing that's going to separate people who get leverage from the people who are just getting busier. Okay. Now, what's my evidence? Prompt engineering as a job title peaked in about mid 2024, and it's been declining ever since. Why? Well, it's because companies are starting to realize that they don't need someone who's a prompt specialist. What they need is somebody who can design the systems around AI. Now, Microsoft was a great example of this, and I've mentioned this a couple of times on this channel. They rolled out Copilot across their entire enterprise, and the adoption stalled at about 20%. And even their CEO admitted that the integrations didn't really work. Okay. They were teaching prompting, but no one was teaching them how to architect it. Okay. Architect it into their workflows, into their systems. Think about how much time you spend right now, in the past, whatever, having to re-explain things like who you are, what you do, what your brand sounds like. If you're having to do it every single time you open a new conversation, you don't have a prompting problem. You have an architecture problem, and that can be solved. The skill that is replacing prompting isn't a better way to prompt. It's a completely different category of a skill. Okay. And today I'm going to explain what it is, why it matters, and how you can start building it for yourself. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the best AI users in the world right now don't spend their time writing better prompts. They spend it building better systems. And I'll give you my framework to help you make that shift for yourself. The real value of prompting. So, prompt engineering was genuinely important, okay? And we're not going to pretend that it wasn't. Early on in AI, 22, 23, the gap between a bad prompt and a good one was huge, okay? Write me marketing copy, just basic generic slop, versus a prompt like write me marketing copy for a B2B SaaS company targeting CFOs who are skeptical about AI in a conversational tone focused on ROI over features, 200 words max. An actual, useful, real prompt. Okay. And that gap was huge. People who could bridge it had a legitimate skill. Okay. That whole chain of thought prompting, a few shot examples, role assignments, system prompting, all of these techniques produce dramatically better outputs. But again, this was early on. This was years ago, which is like decades ago in AI terms. For about 18 months, prompt engineering was the right skill to learn. And I'm not going to argue that 100%. But what I am going to talk about is why it's hitting a ceiling. Okay. There are three things that I feel like have killed prompt engineering as a top skill. Okay. First and foremost, the models have gotten better. Okay. The models are exponentially better than what they were with Claude 3.5, with ChatGPT 4, with even Gemini 2. Now, the newer models understand vaguer prompts. Okay. The gap between a good prompt and a bad prompt is shrinking, not just because we're giving better prompts, but because the models can fill in the gaps and figure out what you left out. Now, the second thing is prompting basically became commoditized. Every time I open up LinkedIn, I see 50 tricks for getting better outputs of ChatGPT or this, that, and the other. Seems like every blog, every course, every YouTube channel is teaching me new techniques. It's just repackaging old ones. Everyone knows the tricks stop being competitive advantage in 2024, maybe early 2025, if I'm being honest. But the real bottleneck was never actually prompting or the prompt. It was everything around the prompt, the context, the system, the memory, the coordination. Prompt optimization is last mile work. Unfortunately, though, nobody seems to be building the road to get there. Again, Nate B. Jones, somebody who I'm listening to practically every single day, had this kind of framing. 90% of the people get mediocre output from AI, not because they prompt badly, because they're using default AI. No memory, no instruction, no tools, no persistent context. They're basically talking to a stranger every single time. This is the general public. This may not be you, but this is how the majority of people are still using AI in March of 2026. A perfect prompt in a system with no context is like the perfect question to somebody you have never met. You'll technically get a correct answer from them, but it's going to miss everything else that matters to you. The gap nobody teaches. So if prompting is necessary but not sufficient, what's the actual skills that matter? Okay. To understand this, you've got to understand the gap that really no one is talking about, much less teaching right now. Okay. There's a gap in the education in AI, and Nate Jones, again, calls it out beautifully. It's the 201 gap. And this is something I've experienced multiple times in my career. In this case, we have AI. Okay. AI 1, AI 101, prompting basics. Thousands of courses out there, hundreds of YouTube videos. Everyone is teaching this. AI 301, building agents, coding workflows, technical implementation. Plenty of content out there if you're a developer and you want to develop some of these things. But it's AI 201, the skills that actually make AI useful in the work that you are doing, especially if you're not a developer, especially if you're not just getting started. There's practically no content out there for these people. That's where the gap is right now. Essentially, this is where 80% of the people fall out of the loop. They learn prompt engineering, but they're never going to jump into systems, the 301, because nobody taught them the thinking skills that they need in between the 101 and the 301. And again, going back to Microsoft, the data they provide proves this. They trained their people on prompting, and adoption stalled at 20%, not because the training was bad, but because the training stopped after prompt engineering, after that 101. Okay? So, again, going back to Nate B. Jones, he talked about 6 skills that close that 201 gap. None of these are prompt engineering skills. Okay. First thing, context assembly, knowing what information AI needs before you ask AI a question, not writing a better prompt, giving AI more context. Even if a basic prompt would work, you want to give it the more context and it will work brilliantly with that context. Quality judgment, recognizing when AI output is good enough versus it needs another pass. Okay? This is where your expertise lies. No prompting is teaching this. It's pure human instinct. Task decomposition, breaking complex work into pieces AI can actually handle. Sometimes you'll have to do this a lot, sometimes you won't have to do this at all, but it's up to you to determine when you'll need to do that. And the only way that comes is from getting reps with AI. Skill isn't asking one brilliant question, it's knowing how to break the work into 10 manageable ones. Iterative refinement, building on AI outputs instead of starting over every single time. I've harped on this, but this is where most people struggle. Most people think it's a slot machine. Pull the handle, hope for a jackpot. Oh, it's over. Let's try again. Pull the handle, hope for a jackpot. Oh, it's over. Let's try again. The skill is treating it like it's sculpting. You're shaping it, you're refining it, you're shaping it again to ultimately come out with something greater than just a lump of clay. Workflow integration, embedding AI into what you're doing and how you're working, not treating it if it's a separate tool you have to walk over and visit to. Okay. This is the difference between I use AI sometimes and AI is woven into everything that I do. Okay. Frontier recognition, knowing that AI can do some things really right now and can't do some things really right now. Not last year's, not in the next year, right now. And this changes seemingly daily. I'll be generous and I'll say weekly. It's changing all the time, and you've got to stay up to date on what it can do and what it can't do. Okay? Now, take a minute, think about that list again. Context assembly, quality judgment, task decomposition, iterative refinement, workflow integration, frontier recognition. This is not prompt engineering. These are management skills. They're not tool skills. They're how you think, not what you're typing. They are the thinking, not the doing. Prompt engineering taught you how to talk to AI, and that's great. But these skills are the skills that are going to teach you how to work with AI. And that's a fundamentally different thing. What replaced prompting? Architecture. So those 6 skills close the 201 gap, but there's something even bigger that replaces prompting as the skill. Okay. It's the thing that holds all of these skills together, all 6 of them together at once. So here's how I think about it. Okay. And I'm a big keyboard shortcut person, so I love this analogy. Prompt engineering is like learning keyboard shortcuts. Keyboard shortcuts make you faster in practically every piece of software that you're using. Cut, copy, and paste. Command Shift 4 on the Mac gives you a screenshot. These are real-time savings. They're genuinely useful. I use them all day, every day. Okay? But keyboard shortcuts never changed what I was doing or why I was doing it. They just optimized the existing workflows that I had. Cognitive architecture is like redesigning your entire workflow. It doesn't make you faster at the old way of working. It completely changes the game. A better prompt only gets better answers for this question, okay? A better architecture gets you better answers to every question that you have with AI. Every conversation, really, that you have AI. It's automatically, it's persistently, and you're not having to re explain yourself or give it more context. One optimizes for single interaction, the other optimizes for the entire system, the entire process that you are using. And the gap between those two, that right now is where the real leverage with AI lives. So, what does architecture actually mean? Now, when I say architecture, I mean something specific. Okay. I'm calling it cognitive architecture. And this is something that, and I'll make sure that it's sourced in the description, but these are concepts from decades of cognitive science research that we're applying now to how we actually work with AI. It's deliberate design of how you think, of how you design or decide, of how you operate. And it's using AI as that substrate there. Okay. Again, I love referencing Nate B. Jones. I love what he's talking about and the things that he's doing. And there are four levers that he's been talking about, which map almost directly to what we're talking about when we talk about cognitive architecture. The first one, memory. Does your AI remember who you are? Does it have persistent memory? Does it remember what you were working on yesterday? Or is every conversation starting from nothing? Okay. Instructions. Does your AI have standing directives? Does it know your communication style, your values, your standards? Or do you have to re explain that every single time? Tools and integrations. This is a big one. Can AI access your data, access your files, access your calendar, access your email? Or do you have it completely isolated over here in a nice little neat box? Okay. Voice and style. Has AI learned how you sound, what you value, how you frame things? Or is it just defaulting to the generic? If you've customized all four of these things, you don't need perfect prompting. Okay. The system already has enough that it'll give you great outputs from just a basic prompt or a mediocre prompt. Why? Because it has context about you. It knows who you are, how you function. It has learned that over time. And that's the whole point. The architect, the architecture makes every prompt better, retroactively, permanently, automatically. Cognitive architecture is where we're headed. Now, for me and my cognitive architecture, what works for me? I have certain things that happen on startup. I say, hey, startup and give me a briefing. The startup will do the simplest things, such as pull the date and time, because by default, Claude Code doesn't know what date and time it is. Okay. It'll do a briefing. Lanier, my chief of staff, will pull in all the handoffs from all the different agents, knows what happened yesterday, is able to pull in my inbox, discern out what I need to respond to and what I don't need to. It can take other pieces of valuable content, things like that, share it with my other agents for me when I have those time blocks to be able to work with those agents. Then once I'm done my briefing, I can move over to Pixel, my content agent. They help me draft LinkedIn posts. She already knows my voice, my audience, my calendar, my brand guidelines. So I don't have to do that every single time that I want to draft new posts. I spend zero time writing clever prompts for these agents. Okay. I spend all the time that I can spare designing and refining my architecture, giving it context, writing, helping it write handoffs, looking at the permissions. I've even built review gates that all I have to tell it is to review your work, and it will automatically review any work that I am doing dynamically. Whether I'm doing programmatic work, whether I'm doing copywriting work, whether I'm doing thought leadership work, it doesn't matter. Okay? The architecture makes the prompts irrelevant. Context is king, not your prompts. The shift from tactician to architect. So let me make this kind of concrete for you. Let me solidify it. Okay. What does it actually look like when someone shifts from prompt engineering to architectural thinking? Okay. So side by side comparison. Let's do that. You have a prompt engineer, the tactician. Okay. Opens up their AI tool of choice, writes a carefully crafted prompt, gets a really good answer, closes AI. Next day, open it up, writes another carefully crafted prompt, re-explains context, gets another good answer. They are losing so much time in between, not carrying context from one conversation to another. Okay. Or worse, they carry some context, but don't carry all of it. And the output they get is not as high a quality as it could be. Okay. The quality depends on the quality that the prompt gets. Okay. And if they're not getting all of the context, you're out of luck. Plus, if they're sick, they're distracted, they're rushed, the prompt quality drops, and again, the output goes down the tube. But let's think about the architect. Okay. This is somebody who takes the time to design the processes, design the system so that the system remembers. So the system, the architect rather, opens up AI, says, draft my next LinkedIn post. AI already knows your voice, knows your audience, knows your content calendar, your brand guidelines, what your last 10 posts were. Okay. Quality is baked into the system and it's not dependent on you in that moment. Okay. Each interaction makes the next one better. The context compounds over and over. And the trust that you build with AI calibrates to a whole nother level. If they're sick, distracted, or rushed, system doesn't matter. The system will still perform because the architecture will still hold. Now, why does this matter for careers? Prompt engineering is a job title that we know is in decline. We've established that. Not because companies don't need AI skills, but because they realize they need architects, not tacticians. The person who can design an entire team, sorry, let me say that again. The person who can design how an entire team uses AI is exponentially more valuable than a person who just writes great prompts. That's it. That's parent. That's it. That's period. Okay. And this maps directly to what I believe is the broader shift of the thinking revolution. Okay. Industrial revolution, we traded muscle for machines. Informational revolution, we traded rules for code. Thinking revolution, we're going to trade doing for AI. Okay? When AI handles the doing, including the doing of the prompting, what remains in the designing, the architecture, the thinking, sorry, let me say that again. When AI handles the doing, including the doing of the prompting, what remains is the designing, the architecture, the thinking about the thinking. The doing isn't the work anymore. The thinking is the work. And prompting is still doing. Architecture, that's the thinking we need to be doing. How to make the shift? 3 starting points. So, what do you actually do with this? Okay. You don't need to build a 19 agent system like I have tomorrow because, hi, I'm crazy. But what you do need to do is you do need to shift your thinking about prompt level thinking to systems level thinking. Okay. And here are three great places to help start that process. Okay. So, number one, build your context layer. Okay. If you are still one of those people who every time you get a new prompt, you have to give it context, take a minute and do one of two things: write a context document, or better, go into your settings and see if you can customize your instance of your ChatGPT or Claude AI or whatever LLM you're using so that it will know consistently who you are, what you do, how you communicate, what your goals are, what your constraints are. Okay? Make sure it has that context. If it doesn't have that context, you are losing time every time you interact with AI. That right there, if you have not done it, is going to be your single biggest ROI move with AI right now. Not better prompting, singular context that persists. If for some reason you can't figure it out, ask your LLM how to customize it. If you still can't figure it out, open up a Word doc, open up a text doc, and write it out there. And then give it to AI every single time. That way you're at least just copy and pasting, not having to retype it every single time. Okay? Claude.md files are the power user pattern here. Okay? As you are building out like Claude Code or things like that, which if you're not there, don't worry about it. This is for those people. That's one of the places where it gives you persistent context that makes every interaction better. If you are still just going through the web interface, that's fine too. Okay? Just again, make sure you're getting in there and you're customizing, building that context layer. So, starting point number two, stop starting from scratch. Make sure you have standing instructions. Okay? Save your best conversations, build templates if you need to off of those conversations. This is the difference between renting someone else's effort and building leverage. Renters start every session from zero. Builders compound one on top of the other, on top of the other, on top of the other. And if you find yourself copy pasting the same context into every chat window, you don't need better prompts. You need a system. You need to let the system handle that stuff and figure out how to let the system handle it no matter what platform you're using. So, starting point number three, designing before you prompt. Before you open an AI tool, spend 2 minutes answering a couple of questions. What do I actually need? Okay. What is that actual deliverable that I'm looking for? And the second thing is, what context does AI need to give that to me? Okay. What does success look like? That's a great another way of putting it. Okay. This is that task decomposition and context assembly that we kind of talked about already. Two of the, again, 201 skills, and it takes less time than writing and rewriting a prompt just to think about and answer those quick questions. Architects design before they build. They always go to blueprints. Prompt engineers build in hope. That's just plain and simple where it's at right now. 2 minutes of designing what you want can save you 20 or 30 minutes of reprompting every single time. Also, something I've talked about in previous videos, your trust canopy. Okay, that starts here. For this task, how much autonomy do you want to give AI? Are you just looking for a first draft? Are you looking for a final product? Are you just brainstorming back and forth? Those decisions right now help everything downstream as you're thinking through your problems, as you're getting your solve. How you solve the problem is now more important than actually solving the problem. Remember that as you're designing before you prompt. So prompt engineering was the right skill back in 2023. It got you through the door, but the door opened into a bigger room, and that room is the architecture. Okay. People are getting People who are getting the most out of AI right now aren't the ones who are just writing better prompts. Okay. They're the ones who are building systems where even a basic prompt gives them better output. Okay. Because the architecture does the heavy lifting, you don't have to worry about being great all the time at prompt engineering, at what you do. Okay. Prompting optimizes a single conversation. Architecture optimizes every conversation that you have with AI. So here's my challenge to you. The next time you sit down to write the perfect prompt, stop it. Just stop it. Ask yourself, is this a prompting problem? Is it an architecture problem? Nowadays, 9 out of 10 times, it's an architecture problem. So in the comments, tell me, where are you right now? Are you still prompt optimizing? That's fine if you are. I want to know. Okay. Or is this starting to resonate with you and you're starting to think, hey, how can I start to build an architecture so I don't have to start from scratch every single time? And if you've made it the shift, share in the comments what helped you get past that point, that you had that aha moment. What was that moment that it clicked in your head? I will read all the comments because I love doing that. I've been terminally online for 20, 25 years now, and I love to interact with the community. So please make sure you comment. And also, if you want to go deeper, if you want to work on building your own cognitive architecture instead of just figuring it out alone, that's what the digitally demented school community is for. That's the place where we are getting together and we're talking about the intersection of AI and psychology, and we're building our own architectures, not from just random prompts or 50 chat GPT prompts that'll change your life. We don't do that. These are real conversations. So it's free to join. Love to have you. Links in the description. And if you like this video, do the things like, share, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you want more of it, I've got other videos and a ton more coming. Why don't you click over to this next video right here?